Stacey Garup is a full-time freelance composer living in the Chicago area. Her music is centered on dramatic and lyrical storytelling. The sharing of stories is a defining element of our humanity. We strive to share with others the experiences and concepts that we find compelling, she writes. I share stories by taking audiences on sonic journeys, some simple and beautiful, while others are complicated and dark, depending on the needs and dramatic shape of the story. Stacy earned degrees in music composition at the University of Michigan, the University of Chicago, and Indiana University. She taught composition and orchestration at Roosevelt University. Then, in 2016, she took the audacious step, left academia, and became a freelance composer. Of Inner Demons, Stacey Garup writes, "It depicts a man as he loses his mind. This piece contains 4 themes, a tarantella, a demented waltz, a scherzo, and the Appalachian folk hymn, The Wayfaring Stranger. The themes are stated quite briskly until arriving at the hymn. This theme consumes the man. It destroys his mind, and he melts down. As his mind is slowly rebuilt, his thoughts become increasingly chaotic until elements of all 4 themes are heard simultaneously. Inner Demons is an arrangement of the 3rd and 2nd movements, in this order, of my string quartet number 2, Demons and Angels." Listening to Inner Demons, I love the sound that she gets from a string orchestra, and I love how she uses a well-known folk song throughout to ground the piece. And there is a moment, about 4 minutes in, when it sounds like we're listening to an old LP, and the vinyl has warped. It's really an extraordinary effect. When Mozart finally escaped from the oppressive clutches of his father and the stifling atmosphere of Salzburg and settled in Vienna, he had one major problem. He didn't have a job. So Mozart set out to do what few, if any, composers in the 18th century could do, and that's make a living as a freelance performer and composer. He filled his mornings teaching piano lessons to the children of the upper class and aristocracy. Then he would play piano in the salons of the hoi polloi. To make even more money, he would present an academy, a benefit concert for himself, in one of the large halls in the city. Competition for such a space was fierce. The only time he could get into one of the halls was during Advent or Lent, when stage productions like operas were prohibited. So he could normally give only 1 or 2 a year. He made a lot of money at these concerts, but to make more, Mozart presented a series of concerts in smaller locations like inns or ballrooms and sold subscriptions for the whole group in advance, much like your season ticket subscriptions. He described the situation in a letter to his father. "You must forgive me if I don't write very much, but it is impossible to find time to do so, as I am giving 3 subscription concerts in Trattner's room on the last 3 Wednesdays of Lent, beginning on March 17th. I have 100 subscribers already and shall easily get another 30. The price for the 3 concerts is 6 florins. I shall probably give 2 concerts in the theater this year. Well, as you may imagine, I must play some new works, and therefore I must compose. The whole morning is taken up with pupils, and almost every evening I have to play. Well, haven't I enough to do? I don't think that in this way I can possibly get out of practice." Mozart had to deal with the problem of playing something that would draw an audience. He hit on a brilliant solution. He invented the piano concerto. He described his early attempts at the concerto to his father. "They are a happy medium between too hard and too easy, very brilliant, pleasing to the ear, natural, without lapsing into vapidity. There are passages here and there from which connoisseurs alone can derive satisfaction, but they are written so that the non-connoisseurs cannot fail to be pleased, even if they don't know why. Mozart wrote his Piano Concerto in D minor for his academy in the Mellgruppe, a concert hall near the Flower Market, on February 11, 1785. There was a mad scramble to present the piece. Mozart finished it the day before, and the parts were still being copied out on the afternoon of the concert, at the same time that Mozart's father arrived in Vienna. One of only 2 concerts that Mozart wrote in a minor key, the weight and seriousness of this piece belies its frantic origin. Franz Joseph Haydn spent most of his life writing music for one employer. He was essentially a hired servant, although a much valued and respected one, for the Esterházy estate. Prince Paul Anton Esterházy, one of the richest of the Hungarian nobility, gave Haydn his first full-time job in 1761. His contract obliged him to compose music as required by the prince, and the prince forbade him to compose for anyone else without permission. Prince Paul died a year later. His brother, Nicholas, then became Haydn's employer for the next 30 years. The amount of music that Haydn provided for the Esterházy court, both in Eisenstadt and in the country residence Esterházy, literally thousands of works, staggers the imagination. How is it the prince never got bored with Haydn's style and hired someone else? Haydn explained the trick to his biographer, George August Griesinger. The prince was satisfied with all my works. I received applause. As head of the orchestra, I was able to experiment, to observe what made a strong impression and what weakened this. In other words, to correct, supplement, cut, take risks. I was cut off from the world. No one could cause me to doubt myself and torment me, and so I had to be original. When Nicholas died in 1790, his son Anton did not carry on his father's opulent musical household. In a move of corporate downsizing, Anton dismissed the court orchestra but kept Haydn on without any obligations of any kind. This allowed Haydn to travel to London twice for expanded stays. The English loved Haydn, and he took full advantage of their hospitality. "Everyone wants to know me," he wrote. "I had to dine out 6 times up to now, and if I wanted, I could dine out every day." He embedded himself in the musical life there, producing 12 exceptional symphonies, among many other works, for the impresario Johann Peter Salomon. Haydn wrote his Symphony in D major for his second series of concerts in London. It premiered at the King's Theatre on April 13, 1795. A contemporary review claimed that Haydn rewarded the good intentions of his friends by writing a new symphony for the occasion, which for fullness, richness, and majesty in all its parts is thought by some of the best judges to surpass all his other compositions. We don't know if Haydn knew this would be his last symphony. He lived another 14 years and wrote a lot more music. However, from the dramatic slow introduction to the first movement, which gives way to a sunny, faster section, to the simple and lyrical second movement, then the humorous and dance-like third, and boisterous final movement, this work is clearly the apotheosis of the 18th century classical symphony.